Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And you can support us via PayPal, Patreon, Bitcoin, and through our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 4th of March 2020, and our guest today is an Australian conspiracy researcher, author, radio host and filmmaker who began 2020 by shocking his audience and followers in the truth movement, claiming that an artificial light frequency invaded his mind and told him that the Earth is both flat and round at the same time. That and much more, such as the coronavirus, 5G and climate change, coming up with Max Igan. Good morning from Copenhagen, Denmark, and good evening to an old friend of the show, Max Igan, joining us from Queensland, Australia. We are very happy to welcome you back on the show, and thank you very much for being with us.
Good to be here, Lucas. Good to talk to you again, brother. I can't believe it's been 6 years. I really cannot believe it's been that long.
Isn't it amazing? The last time we had our conversation was at the Open Mind Conference in Copenhagen, Denmark in 2014, and it's been a while, and so much has happened since then, and also in your life, and we want to talk about that certainly.
Sure. We can just go anywhere you want to go, brother. Let's get into it and see where we end up.
We have so many topics to discuss with you on the show today, Max, such as the coronavirus spread in China and all over the world, climate change, 5G, electromagnetic radiation, AI, artificial intelligence, the Australian bushfires, archons and demonic entities, and many other topics. But first of all, Max, we gotta talk. In January 2020, just a little under 2 months ago, you came out shocking your audience and followers on your channel and website by claiming that an artificial light frequency invaded your mind and told you that the Earth is flat. After that, you said that the Earth is not only flat, but also round, a globe, like we've been educated to believe. You also said that the Earth is a holographic projection. And this did not only just shock your audiences, but also people, seekers within the truth movement, who began to question not only your validity, but also the whole field of truth and conspiracy research. You also, in your first video and statement, claimed that you were the chosen one. Please take us through all of this. What actually happened?
Well, it's called being a targeted individual, brother, is what it's all about. I was making a series of videos and I was reaching a lot of people on the fires that were happening here. The fire videos I was putting out were going viral. And I got hit with what I can only assume is the voice of God technology that we've heard so much about. And it flipped my personality. It literally flipped my personality. And it wasn't even about the Earth being flat or anything like that. It was just about making me become the opposite of what I was. But it's really interesting the way they do it, because it was all jumbled up with memories of mine and all sorts of stuff. It was absolutely bizarre. But it was an absolute impulse I had. It was like was really interesting actually, because when I uploaded that video, we had a whole bunch of people here doing a sound healing at a building we've got on the property here. And I was parked in. I couldn't even get my car out, but I did like a 6-point turn to get my car out. I drove down the side of the house through the bushes and scratched my car and drove over the edge of the fireplace and all sorts of stuff to get into town, because I had to get the video uploaded by midnight, because it was like the meaning of my life. All of this sort of stuff was really interesting the way it happened. But there was a series of events that led up to it. There was adrenaline that pumped through my body for the whole day up until about midnight that night. Then I got hit by this whatever it was, and it was like it was a rectangular light that literally I saw descend and hit me on the pineal gland and then pull away from me. I know it sounds bizarre to people, but that's what it was. That's what I saw. You know, I can't explain it any other way. And the saving grace for me was that I actually saw it come in and hit me. So even while I was making the video, I don't know whether you saw the video. I mean, I deleted it when I came back to my senses, but even through the video, I was saying, but this was technology. And I was trying to make a joke out of it to say I'm supposed to be the chosen one, because it had all of these series of events, and I could see how they did it, how they can take sections of your life and little moments of your life, and they can convince you that this is what has happened, that you've had this epiphany. And then got contacted by certain people as well, telling me I was an ascended master and all sorts of stuff like that. So they're kind of selling it to people as ascension. You know, and I've seen all this happening, and I've gone through this. And fortunately, I had some really good friends around, and I was able to kind of unload onto them. And I was literally talking at them for about 6 days. I was just a babbling fool. Had I been in town when that had happened, I'd probably end up in the nut house. The night that it happened, the very next day, there was an article in the newspaper about me and the fire videos I'd be putting out, saying that conspiracy theorist Max Igan is claiming the fires were started with directed energy weapons, which is exactly the opposite of what I was saying. I was saying people need to be very careful of vetting the claims they're making. And then there was a coordinated troll farms that hit my channel, and then there were claims of plagiarism that were put out against me at the same time. So it was a coordinated attack, and it was all done to bring attention to me and then have me discredit myself,
But you have actually admitted publicly that you've been smoking a lot of marijuana, hashish, cannabis, weed, or whatever it is that you're smoking. But could that actually have contributed or played a part in what took place in January 2020? Could that have triggered your mind in becoming delusional or hearing voices, some kind of psychosis? What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely believe it was a targeted thing. I mean, when I was younger, I was a musician. I did all sorts of exotic drugs. I've done acid, I've done mushrooms, I've done DMT, I've done ayahuasca, I've done all sorts of stuff, and I've smoked weed my whole life. I'm okay with that. This was not like anything like that. This was technology. This was absolutely technology. I mean, even thinking, the light of God or whatever, I don't know if God would use a rectangular beam, It seemed like technology.
Depends on your perception of God, right?
Well, I guess so. Everyone has their own perception of God, but it felt like something. The only way I could describe it is it felt like something took a snapshot of my mind. It almost felt like there was an interface. It almost felt like this is a simulation, and I'm being interfaced by a higher realm, something like that. Like there was an operator. I almost felt like I almost caught a glimpse of a room with people in it. It was a weird thing. But through the whole thing, I saw how all of the realities could fit together. I saw how the globe Earth and the flat Earth and the fractal Earth and the holographic Earth and the electric universe, I saw how all of this can all coexist together. It all depends on what state your awareness is in, which isn't even your consciousness. It's the information that we get fed to us. I saw how the whole interface of how we're being pulled into AI through these scrying mirrors that we're involved in all the time, these computer screens. It's all being done wirelessly. Doesn't necessarily have to be done through SCART plugs and microchips. They can do it wirelessly. We're electrical beings. We're electrical energetic beings. And the radiation that comes off the monitors, we are interfacing with this all the time. I mean, we've all had experiences where people have said something and their mobile phones picked it up, and the next thing you know, you're getting ads from Facebook and stuff for whatever it was that you said. I've had instances where I've literally thought of something, You know, I take turmeric for my arthritis in my left thumb. Turmeric's a pretty random thing. I was sitting here one day just thinking, I need to buy some more turmeric. I didn't say it out loud, I just thought it. And within 2 minutes, I had 2 ads for turmeric appear in my mailbox. That's pretty random. Amazon trying to sell me turmeric, you know, that's a pretty random email to get. And I didn't say it out loud, I only thought it. And I realized then that this thing's reading my thoughts. They're reading our thoughts. They've tailored this interface, and the way they've replaced the monitors over the years with from the analog monitors to the digital monitors, and then it went to to LED. So it's different now. The LED, what's the LED doing? This light interface. How are we interacting with this, and what is it extracting from us? How much of our awareness are we transferring into the virtual world? They've got everybody mapping everything, cameras everywhere, cameras, film your drives, film everything. All of it's going into the virtual world. How easy would it be for them to create a virtual world on a mainframe, pull your consciousness in there, and would you know they'd done it? That's the thing.
Speaking of very highly developed technology, right now your picture is breaking up a lot. There seems to be a very bad connection. I mean, it's not really very stable when we're talking about very sophisticated technology.
Well, yeah, it seems to happen whenever I start talking about this. My connection seems to get very bad. I live in an area where we do have a pretty bad connection where I live. Unfortunately, I live out in the country, and there's 1 mile of road where they've still got old connection lines, and I live on that mile of road, which is unfortunate. So sometimes I say, if the connection does fail, we can stop it here. Like, we can get up. I can come back in a few hours, and we can record a bit more then if you want to, because this does often happen when I start talking about AI. It's interesting how it works.
That is very, very interesting, and you do believe that in a few hours, depending on the time there, that the connection could be better in case it gets worse than this.
Oh, it will be. It definitely will be. If I get up, I often get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to do interviews in Europe, because I mean I get up at 4 o'clock anyway, so it doesn't matter for me getting up an hour early. So that's just the way it is, brother, unfortunately.
So, Max, flat Earth, globe Earth, hollow inner Earth, holographic Earth. What is real and what is not? What is the truth and what is not the truth? How can all of this coexist at the same time according to people's perception or how they perceive things in the world? To most ordinary people, who's not into truth and conspiracy research, the flat earth theory is far from logical and is massively ridiculed, of course. But the so-called flat earthers are extremely intense about this theory, and some become even aggressive and quite disrespectful to those who do not believe in the flat earth theory. So is this a divide and conquer psyop orchestrated on purpose? What is the actual situation, do you think? Is this an implementation of disinformation?
Well, the thing is, you know, if where your awareness is, like I was saying, if they create a virtual reality on a mainframe, you know, and the Mother Earth becomes the motherboard, how would you know the difference? If what you wanted to believe was that it was flat, then you're going to find everything to prove that. If you go and look at anything with confirmation bias, you're going to find evidence to support that. And the flat earthers aren't out to really prove the Earth is flat. They're just out to disprove the globe. And it could well be quite a lot wrong with the globe model that we're given. We don't know. You know, it could be bigger than what we're told. Could be twice as big. Could be 10 times as big as what we're told. We're told it's a certain, you know, certain circumference, but you know, we've never walked it. We've never done it ourselves. All we've got is the books to go on. All we know is what we're told. So, you know, who knows what we're being told. So, but what I got from the whole the experience I had when I said both realities could exist together. If you can imagine your consciousness being an electrical being and how you could be taken into a mainframe and not know it, well, how far down could the fractal go? So you think about as a fractal reality, if they took everything from this reality, all the information that they needed to create a virtual reality on a motherboard, and then because you're an electrical being, through this interface of these scrying mirrors, were able to extract your consciousness into that motherboard, how would you know? How would you know they'd done that? And if then when you were in that motherboard, you again got into this thing and started trying to create a virtual reality, and you created another one within that, and they extracted your consciousness down another level into the fractal, how would you know? And how deep into the fractal could you go? And how deep into the fractal are we now? You know, and if you wanted to take human consciousness off the Mother Earth and transfer it into a virtual mother board, the easiest way to do it would be to convince everybody on the Mother Earth that the Earth is flat. Thereby, you could extract them into the motherboard, and they could go and do all the measurements they wanted, and the Earth would be flat because it's a motherboard.
But what is a motherboard and what is a Mother Earth? What is the difference? How does that work?
Well, it depends on, if you think about reality, what it is, it's simply a projection depending on what you believe. It's all really going on inside your head. Think of movies like The Matrix. You know, you're living a dream, and it's all based on what you believe is possible. But if you're looking at that with confirmation bias, and the information is coming to you from all these sources, not really, you know, your pineal isn't open. You're not, you know, we're not experiencing all of our senses. How do we even know what this realm is? Now, one thing we do know about it is it's a prison, but it can be anything you want it to be. When you think of yourself as being an electrical being, all the energy, it's all electrical. Every feeling you have, every emotion you have. So there's your electrical universe. We're all electrical beings. When you think about how we could be extracted onto motherboards and down to a fractal, there's your fractal universe. If we were in that motherboard reality, then it would be holographic. So there's your holographic universe. And are we already there? Because what I experienced with that light that came down, like I said, it was almost like it was an interface. I felt like someone took a snapshot of my mind, and then they jumbled my memories up with all this other stuff to make it believable so they could flip me. Because, you know, this little program's getting out of control. It's saying things we don't want. We need to, you know, and they can't just come and kill me or something. It would have gone, all my stuff would have gone viral. The best thing they can do is have me discredit myself. And the best way to do that is to flip my personality, which is what they did. So it wasn't even about the Earth being flat or the Earth being round. It was just the fact that I was saying things that were not me. And anybody who would have seen those videos would have gone, you know, what has happened to Max? This is not the way he thinks. This is not the way he you know, I'm very analytical. You know, if I even though I was going to say, well, the Earth is flat, I would give you evidence to support that claim. I didn't do any of that.
But you've been speaking about flat Earth and that whole topic for a lot of years, also saying that you could not, you did not think specifically that the Earth could be flat, and the whole theory that became popular with certain factions of the truth movement. But then when you are now this influencer and a person who has his own channel and a lot of followers, don't you think you reacted very soon, very quickly after this experience? Because it did, a lot of people said, now Max is part of dividing the truth movement, where people started questioning other researchers as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it had that effect. If it did, I hope that it didn't. I mean, in my perspective, I can see how the flat earthers think now. I can sympathize with the way they think. See, what I've always said is there's no model that can be proven. You can only prove the model that we're given, the globe earth, up to a certain point. There's still questions that you can't answer. Doesn't matter what model you have, there's questions you can't answer. And I've always said it doesn't matter, because you can't prove it anyway. So what we do know about the earth is that it's a prison, and we need to establish the freedom to find out. Then we can put all of these riddles and questions to rest.
But most scientists say, of course, most official scientists and people who are working in, of course, in military organizations and NASA, and they of course say it's a globe. They have pictures. When you fly from one part of the country, you fly in a certain direction to get to that destination, and you can see that the Earth is kind of a sphere when you look out of the airplane window. I mean, why is it not totally logical that the Earth is round?
Well, look, you know, I think, like you say, it's a divide and conquer strategy. It's a divide and conquer mechanism, because, you know, when you start going out and doing measurements and taking observations, you can start proving anything you want to believe is true. That's the thing. That's very, very big compared to us. And, you know, and all the measurements they do are over water and all sorts of stuff. You know, I don't try to sort of reach the middle ground and sympathize with all of them. You know, I don't want to see the division between the globers and the flatters. People who think I created it with what I did, well, I don't know. I didn't do that. I mean, I was targeted. I mean, I did it, but I was targeted. And I've kind of recovered from it pretty quickly. A lot of people have said to me, yeah, how come you've recovered so quickly? One of the things, I mean, I don't know, I think there's something that I instinctively do, which is a jungle snuff that I've been doing for the last few years called Repel. And Repel is designed to decalcify and protect your pineal gland. And that's the only thing I can put it down to. Maybe that's helped me bounce back a little bit. But I've been contacted by people who said this happened to me. It happened to my sister. She committed suicide. Another woman said she ended up in a nut house for 3 months. Another guy said it happened to him. And this is a guy who's a host of a very popular radio show, who I won't mention. But he said it happened to him 7 years ago, and he's never recovered from it. And he got a lot of healing from hearing me talk about it. And he said what I spoke about with the rectangular light and the whole thing, and the involuntary actions, like having to go and upload that video, said this is exactly the stuff that happened to him. And he got a lot of healing from it. I've been contacted by over a dozen people that have had similar things happen to them.
So this was artificial intelligence. This was frequency beams targeted at you.
It was a weapon of some sort. It was definitely directed energy, whether it was artificial intelligence, whether it was the government, whether it was aliens, whether it was a satellite, whether it was a drone, whether it was someone standing outside with a torch. I don't know. I got no clue where it came from or who was responsible.
But it certainly, in your opinion, was an attempt to create more conflict within the truth movement, or confusion, perhaps.
Definitely, and to have me discredit myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was bringing really reaching a lot of people with the fire videos that I put out. A lot of the Australian people. I had people stopping me in the supermarket saying, "Hey, you're the guy who's putting out the fire videos," and I had people writing to me saying, "Hey, my mum just sent me one of your videos." You know, so I was reaching a lot of people. A lot of people were seeing that the government was responsible for this. They're controlling the weather. They've created the drought deliberately. They've done all this by design. And right when I had everybody's attention, I get hit by this thing. And then the very next day, that article appears in the paper calling me out as a conspiracy theorist, which would have got everybody else's attention. And they all would have gone and looked at my channel. And then the very next thing they would have seen was that flat earth video.
And you could not have stopped yourself, or at least hesitated a couple of days until you had all the pieces put together to understand what you were really going through before you put out this video.
It was a complete compulsive thing. My heart was racing. I couldn't even type words properly. It was bizarre. When I step back and look at it now, you know, I really wish I'd had someone here. I wish I had a friend here. I wish I wasn't in the place by myself. You know, we had people down there doing a healing, but they were not involved with me. So, you know, I really wish I had some people here to just say, "Max, think about what you're doing." But it was just like this download, and I was caught in this wave, and I couldn't not do it. Like I said, I was parked in, and I had to get out and scratch the car and do all, because I had to get this uploaded. It was, you know, and then I just babbled for like 6 days. It was bizarre. You know, like I said, I'm lucky I had people around who were, you know, my friends who could listen to this and go, you know, this is not normal, what's going on, and try to talk me through it. But I wouldn't even listen to them. You know, I thought a lot of people were my enemies, all sorts of stuff. It was bizarre. It was really, really bizarre. And like I said, I've done all sorts of exotic drugs when I was a youngster. But
that could also be like a marijuana psychosis or whatever people go through when they smoke weed too much.
No, this wasn't anything like anything I've experienced, brother. This was technology. You know, I'm convinced this is technology. And, you know, I've done enough research into this sort of stuff. You know, we hear about targeted individuals, and I hear these stories from them, and I think, I don't know whether to believe all this sort of stuff. Now it's happened to me. I completely understand where they're coming from, and I know I'm absolutely convinced that what happened to me was done via technology of some kind. Where it came from, I have no idea, but it was definitely technology.
But certainly there is a lot of conflict between people just within the truth and conspiracy research movement, and we've seen that over the years. And it seems like that a lot of people within this movement are playing each other and going against each other, in fact working for an elite plan, so that it's more difficult to find and establish the truth, whatever the truth is. Why do you think there's so much conflict and internal fighting going on within within this alternative movement? What is actually going on? Do you think it is part of a CIA psyop?
Oh, absolutely. Divide and conquer, brother. Divide and conquer. There's a lot of out there that'll put out truth, and then they'll mix it with disinformation, and then people start arguing over the details, and then they'll start making videos about other people that they disagree with. Oh, I don't like what Max Igan said, and they'll do a hit piece on me or whatever.
Some people are really disrespectful and very rude to other people with just minor details. They'll go for the throat, as it were, and it's not very nice, and it's certainly not very enlightened. But why do you think that certain people, at least, could be a little bit, let's just say, unbalanced?
Yeah, they could be. They could be a little unbalanced. Absolutely, they could. I mean, many of them could. I would suggest many of them probably are. But there's troll farms as well. You've got to understand. There are literally troll farms. There's whole rooms of people. You get 40 or 50 people in a room, CIA people or Mossad people, and they're paid to sit there and troll your videos and make negative comments and get into arguments. And you'll have people that are even on each side. You'll have someone that will support your work and someone else who will argue against them. And they're both sitting at the same table in a troll farm. They just want to bring people into the argument and have you sitting there typing all day and arguing.
And we know that those intelligence services or people from CIA, that they have people to do that and debate people within the truth movement. Don't you just think it's different people, different strokes for different folks?
Yeah, but we know they have troll farms. They admit it, that they've got troll farms. That's what they do. And they're employed to sit there, and they do it for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And then the next shift comes in and they do it. They do it all day. So we know that they do. And you've got other people out there. I mean, some people in the truth community, in the truth movement, I think they get these belief systems, they get these ideas, they look at things with confirmation bias, and they've been fighting against the government for so long and not getting anywhere. But when they see someone like you or me say something, and that one sentence they disagree with, like they agree with everything, but there's that one sentence, oh, got to pick him up on that. He's an agent or whatever. So they lash out against you because it's an outlet for them, because they're having no success against the government. If they lash out against you, they might get a reaction, and then they can engage with something, because they need that outlet. It's a tribal thing. It's like a football game, So there's a lot of that goes on as well, which is the result of programming with people. But again, you'll get, like I said, you'll get agents out there that are moles that'll give you real information, and then they'll embellish it with stuff so that you argue over the details. And so if someone else says that same truth, but they don't have those, they have different details, and which one's the, and they're probably both agents. That's why they added the extra details, which you can't prove anyway. But when someone comes out and says, oh, it's information from an insider or how do you know who's the insider? There's always an insider, isn't there? And it's always some secret plan and some spy novel version of reality that's going to sit you there eating popcorn and waiting for someone else to come and save you. And you're not going to pay attention to what's around you and simply stand up and stop dealing and participating in wrong behavior and tolerating wrong behavior from your politicians and your police and everybody around you. Stop tolerating wrong behavior in your environment and start learning how to say no. You're not going to do any of that because you're sitting there waiting for Trump to come along or someone to come along or got a queue or whatever, it's a scam. And that's what causes all of the division, Then you got people that are on these, the Trump train or the Q train or the Antifa or this or that, and they all argue with everybody else, and divide and conquer is the motto, and that rules the day.
There are, let's say, rather public truthers who are also going against each other and shouting controlled opposition at other alternative media outlets and public speakers. As soon as you get some popularity, people think some people think, then you're probably controlled opposition.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. That's the divide and conquer strategy. You know, it's they do it here. You know, you're the underdog, and they want to support you while you're the underdog. And as soon as you get up there and people start noticing you, you're the tall poppy, and they want to hack you down. You know, but there are certain elements out there, I think, that are definitely doing that, and they shouldn't be. Like I said, I've never made a video about another truther. I've never made a hate video or a video trying to expose another truther. I've called out things that I've seen have been wrong, like when Ken O'Keefe a few years ago was ripping off 100 grand from people I called that out for what it was, and I just let the cards fall where they may. But I did that in the form of a post on my website, and I said, that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I did that. One interview with Repel, and I've never gone back. I'm not interested in going to hack anybody down, or I'll expose wrongdoing when I see it. But I mean, I got a lot of that when I did my expose on Christchurch. There were a lot of people who were saying this was fake and it was a hoax and there were no victims and all sorts of stuff. And I did an expose on that because I was trying to confirm those reports, and I found that I couldn't confirm them. And so I wondered what they were trying to misdirect us away from. And I ended up seeing a man in red. I saw a car leaving halfway through, all sorts of stuff. I thought, well, hang on, there's information on this video that exposes the official narrative of the lone gunman, blows it out of the water without any debate needed. And I tried to point that out to people, and I just got defamed and attacked. And because there's a certain controlled opposition narrative that runs through the independent media. When you start stepping outside of that controlled opposition narrative and start telling too much truth, you're going to find that those elements in there that are controlling that narrative are going to whip up a storm around you. And then you'll have these troll farms come along, and they'll start making negative comments, which will influence the people who come along and watch your video clips. They'll read the comments and they'll think, wow, everybody doesn't like this guy. I won't even bother watching the clip. That's how they do it. And it's very, very orchestrated. And when you can see it, you start realizing that there's a definite controlled narrative. If you look at a shooting, there were some shootings that were absolutely hoaxes, but when you look at it, you think, well, hang on, this isn't a hoax, and you call it for that. When people start attacking you and defaming you and telling you you're a shill and you're an agent because you're not saying it's a hoax, then you know there's an agenda. It's the same with anything,
Well, it's your point of view. It's what you're saying. It's your truth. If you only speak your truth, then you don't have to discredit and talk negatively about other public speakers, huh?
Exactly. And I just put out my perspective. It's just my perspective, take it or leave it. But that's how you know the flat earth movement is a psyop and it's controlled opposition. It's designed to divide people. It's because of the incredible animosity you get from people if you do not comply with this belief.
Why do you think they act like that?
Well, because there's shills and trolls in there that promote that attitude, and they get other people to go along with them, And there's a certain amount of ego involved. They're only half awake. They're diet truthers. You've got the truth. It's like religion. All religion has a seed of supremacy at its root. This religion's the best. You must tolerate all religions, but this one's the best. You're the ones who are going to heaven. It's the same with the flat earthers. And they will not. They'll only unite to the point with someone. But if you're a major truther out there and you're speaking out, you've got a lot of followers, and you're not saying the earth is flat, then you must be an agent, because we all believe this. And if you can't see it, you're either stupid or you're an agent, and that's ego.
And then they discredit the rest of what you're saying as well, huh?
Well, exactly, and that's ego, and that's programming, because, like I said, there's no model that can be proven. You can go as far as you want with the globe, and you're still going to find there's questions you can't answer. Same with the flat, same with the hollow, same with the holographic, same with the electrical, same with any type of realm you want to come up with. You're going to get to a certain point, and you're going to be able to prove as much as you want to believe, but there's going to be elements that you can't answer.
It's just interesting if you say that they can exist at the same time.
Well, they can, depending on where your awareness is. If this is a fractal reality, if this is holographic, if this is a simulation, which it could well be, how do you know it isn't? It's all electrical. Even when you look at modern science, it'll tell you that there's no matter. Atoms are all spinning, they're all empty space. Nothing ever touched anything. We've heard Nassim Haramein, all these people talk about all this sort of stuff. Nothing ever touched anything ever. Everything's just all this spinning energy. So what's to say it's not a simulation? When you look at sacred geometry, look at how what is it, the sacred spiral is in everything. The Fibonacci sequence is in everything. When you start even breaking down leaf matter and dirt and everything down to its component parts, it's all very mathematical. It doesn't seem very random. So it could easily be a very, very sophisticated simulation. We don't know. And like I said, with what I experienced, hey, I'm quite open to that because I felt like I was being interfaced with. So who's to say we're not already into the fractal? You know, sometimes I even wonder if that's what happened to me, whether maybe I'm in the fractal now and my body was left back there on the bed in my other reality. And maybe there's a whole bunch of people there running around wondering what happened to Max. And here I am sitting on a mainframe thinking I'm still there. That has entered my head. Might sound crazy, but it has entered my head. Because how would you know? How would you know? That's the thing. So that's why there's no point arguing about what this realm is. Now, what this realm is a prison that has got us all walking between the lines, and we need to do something about that rather than arguing about the shape of the prison. Because while we're arguing about it, the walls are getting higher and higher and higher.
So we are living inside of a matrix. You think we are quarantined in some kind of way?
Well, that's a question as well that's popped into my mind, you know, whether we're caught in some sort of a time loop. There has been in questions about that, whether we're in some sort of a soul loop and we're just caught here reliving these lives over and over again. That's what deja vu is. I mean, who would know?
The reincarnation karma wheel soul trap, for example.
Who knows? It could be. It could be a soul trap. Could be a soul test. Could be a soul trap. We don't know. They're all very, very interesting questions.
Why do we keep coming back if reincarnation is real and not remembering? Wiped memory. Going back to this realm. The last time you were on the show, we talked a lot about archons. The Muslims call them the jinn, Chatahuri, I think it's called in Africa, and of course demons within the Christians' religion. If these demonic dark entities are controlling or invading the mind or the souls of people, then perhaps it's some kind of a hijack, even what happened to you in the beginning of 2020.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I talked about with that was the predator mind as well. When you start talking about the archons and the predator mind and the whole concept of why we're always searching for the truth and researching what that's all about, you know, and how to escape from it, how to escape from this realm, you know, perhaps because you've got to come in here, I guess, with amnesia, because otherwise, what would the experience be for? How would you ever get to choose between right and wrong? You've got to make that choice, I think. You've got to come in here and be given that discerning ability, but the choice has got to be there. I mean, evil's got to exist for you to have the choice not to choose that, you know, otherwise what would the test be for?
So what will you choose the next time, Max, when you leave this body? What do you think you will choose if you see the white light and the tunnel of light and the live review and maybe relatives looking their best, and you will, if you will be asked to go back to correct something or to live another lifetime, would you want to try and go in another direction and bypass this matrix and get out of it, go to source or other planetary systems, if we talk about the existence and the possibility of that? Or what do you think you would want to choose with all of this awareness that you've acquired during this lifetime?
Well, it isn't even a matter of wanting to acquire awareness. It's a matter of, when I was small, I could see that this was all messed up. We shouldn't be doing this, and I could just see a better way. And, you know, if reincarnation is real, then perhaps I've left some breadcrumbs for myself the next time I come here. You know, if I was to come back, I think I would be greatly attracted to the works of Max Igan. It would probably appeal to my personality. So perhaps that would help. But, you know, if I get to that point, I mean, it's an interesting thing, you know, because you're told not to walk into the light because that will bring you back here. You should go the other way. But, you know, who tells you that? Is that true as well? And when you look back at your life, I mean, I look back at my life and there were things I would have done differently. There are mistakes I made. And if I had a chance to rectify those mistakes, that would probably be a tempting thing to think, well, yeah, I can come back and I can do it this time. But then when you come back, you got amnesia. Are you going to mess up the way you did last time? Is that why you keep coming back? There's an interesting thing that I happened in that experience when I had it was I relived all of the deja vus that I'd had, and it was amazing. And I saw all the moments, all the chance meetings where I didn't pay enough attention to someone that I should have paid attention to. So with those sort of things, that sort of knowledge in your mind, there is an option that you may choose to want to come back to do that. Maybe you choose to go through that pain again because you'll think, well, maybe I'll know this time and it won't be so painful this time. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, ultimately, now if I had a choice, I would choose to move on to whatever is next, but I can't know what that is, so I can't know what that choice will be from now. But hey, no stake in the outcome.
Especially if this Earth is like a prison planet where people have to work very, very hard for very little money in this so-called New World Order system that you've been exposing for so many years.
Well, yeah, if it's always like this, then why would you want to know when you came back? If you knew when you came back, you'd probably go completely crazy. That's probably maybe when I arrived when I was a kid, when I was old enough, I thought to tell God that I'd been born onto the wrong world. I didn't want to be here. I knew it was all messed up from when I was 4 years old. So who knows? Maybe that was a memory.
When you say God, how do you explain God? What are your thoughts on that? You're not religious, right?
It's a word for source. It's a word for the ultimate consciousness. I mean, if this is an energetic universe, which we know it is, and the energy itself is conscious, well, that to me would be God. That would mean God makes up everything, and it's just a word we have for it. I mean, source, the great creator. The Freemasons will tell you it's the grand architect, won't they? I mean, whatever you want to call it, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call it, prana, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think that there is a higher consciousness that we're all part of. Whether that is the contact consciousness, whether that's just something that's kept us in this prison, but even so, even if that is so, then there's got to be something higher above that. I mean, there's a grand scheme to all this in some weird direction, I can imagine. So what that is, I don't know, but I mean, it's just a word we use, brother. So I don't know what else to call it.
Some people claim that the archons, these soulless, demonic, dark entities, that they are in fact artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts on that theory?
Could be. See, we could already be in the fractal, and we're already in the simulation, and that's what is running us. If you were in a game, one of these games that we play on our computers, that people play on computers, and someone was operating you and you were a player in that game, it would be like you're being controlled by an archon, wouldn't it? Someone who is soulless because they're just letting people die and shit because it's just a game to them. But you're real in there. How do we know this isn't someone playing a game? Because that's something else I got through this as well, is the fact that the leaders, I mean, they're inhuman what they do. Humans couldn't do what these people do. I got the kind of the concept that they were like more like biological robots, and they were being played and controlled by external sources who are simply playing war games.
You've spoken about this, and many researchers talk about the world leaders, some of them at least, and also people behind the public government, the secret government, that they are controlled by these archon forces, reptilian aliens who can go into, or at least project themselves looking like a human being. What are your thoughts on that?
Quite possible. I mean, I can't prove it, but it's quite possible because, I mean, the actions of these people, these are not what human beings do. I mean, how could you order the carpet bombing of another country? How could you order putting sanctions on Iraq that killed 500,000 children and say it's okay? I mean, normal people can't do these things, so Yeah, I think it's highly likely, but I mean, I can't prove it. It isn't something I go into or I talk about on my radio shows or anything because, you know, it just creates all that debate and argument and speculation and ties people up in details and arguing about who they are rather than getting ourselves out of the situation that we're in. So,
But shouldn't we be allowed to talk about everything? Even if some people disagree and will call you whatever it is they choose to call you, but does that really matter to you what people think?
oh no, it doesn't matter to me what people think, but I think we have a situation and we need unity. We need people to be unified. So, and I can't prove it's anybody. I mean, you know, I can prove it's anybody you want to believe. So that's what I mean. There's so much information out there. I have my suspicions about what may be going on, but I can't prove it. So I don't bother putting it out there because I'm not interested in arguing about it. And I'm not going to make a statement because I could be wrong. It could be something else, you know. So, you know, that's just the way I look at it. I mean, these sorts of things are divisive. I'm happy to speculate about it and discuss it, but with the type of environment we've got on the internet, when you're discussing things in text and on chatting, it's almost impossible to discuss it. People take every word as face value, as gospel, and you end up in an argument. There's no real debate about things anymore with the current internet environment. And if people disagree with one tiny little aspect of what you're saying, suddenly you become the enemy.
So people don't use discernment enough. They're not critical enough, or they're just critical for the sake of criticizing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the beauty of what they've done is that, you know, unfortunately, I mean, a lot of people out there aren't real smart, and I don't mean to be insulting, but if you look at the world, not a lot of bright people out there. I mean, look at the state of the world. It wouldn't have got this way if everyone was pretty intelligent, you know. So, you know, so what they've done, and the best way to do it is you give everybody a soapbox so that nobody gets hurt. Because if you give everybody a soapbox and everybody can throw in their opinion, then anybody who's got a valid opinion just doesn't get heard above the cacophony. So that's what they do. That's what they've done with the internet. That's what they're doing with Facebook. That's what they're opening up comments and likes and all this sort of stuff. Gives everybody a soapbox. So some of the people that you're arguing with, I mean, you might be a professor and some guy says something that just gets to you. Could be some 17-year-old crackhead living in the Bronx that hasn't got a clue about life, never been outside at all, but he happens to know how to string a sentence together, and he got you, and you're arguing with this idiot who has no clue, but you're wasting all your energy on it. And that's what they do. You got no idea who the people are that you're talking to, but if you give everybody in the world a soapbox, then nobody gets hurt, and that's why they've done it. Makes perfect sense.
So let's talk about the current outbreak and the spread of the coronavirus. And it's obviously the hot topic at the moment all over the world. And there's a lot of fear spreading through the media. But please talk about your perception of things here. What is the truth? Is the mainstream media telling us lies and feeding us something that is not true? What is actually going on? How serious and how deadly is this coronavirus?
I don't think it's serious and deadly at all. I think the whole thing is being staged. I really do. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if some sort of an agent was released in China to do the damage that it's done in China. But I even wonder about that. I mean, I think mainly what we've seen in China is the rounding up of dissidents. I'm even questioning the videos and all the stuff we see come out of China, the people being brutalized by police and you know, videos of people having their doors welded shut and people being barricaded into buildings and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, since when are people able to film the police in China? And how do these videos get out to the West? Isn't the internet very restricted in China? How are we seeing all this stuff coming out to us? They've got all these ghost cities in China. How hard would it be to take 1,000 or a couple of thousand crisis actors in there and set up a film set and set this whole thing in place and run around spraying everywhere and doing all this stuff? I mean, I just wonder about the whole thing.
A lot of people would have to keep their mouths shut if there were crisis actors. That many thousands of crisis actors even.
You get a bunch of government people in there to do it. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to do coming out of China. Billions of people in China. It wouldn't be that hard to do. But also, the figures that are coming out, or the worldwide figures are 3,000, around about 3,000 deaths from coronavirus. This is a tenth of what we've had from the flu this year so far. And coronavirus is a type of flu anyway. But I think they've had some event in China. Possibly they released an agent. I mean, I don't know. I could speculate on it. I don't know. They've done all sorts of testing to genetically find out the genetics and genetically map the Chinese since 2003. They've been doing tests to connect Chinese DNA. They could very easily have tailored some sort of a biological agent to release in China, and then they can use propaganda to spread it around the rest of the world. The panic and the complete overreaction from governments, it's extremely predictable. I think this is a completely false pandemic. They can use it to identify anybody who is displaying symptoms of the common cold and take them away for quarantine, indefinitely, detain them, whatever. They can cancel public gatherings. They can limit transport. They can limit travel. They can set up quarantine areas all over the place. They can blame it for a decline in global trade, and they can use that to crash the world economy, usher in their new money system. There's so much they could get out of this coronavirus, and it seems to be a perfect storm that they've set up. Also, if you look at 5G, you'll find that all of the symptoms of coronavirus can be simulated by 5G. 5G can actually, you can target people with 5G as well. It's directed waves, so you can target directed people, and you can simulate these symptoms in certain people. It won't be everybody in the crowd, just be the people that you target. So there's all sorts of information coming out about this. I think the whole thing is a huge psyop. I actually released a video just tonight, just prior to this interview, called How to Stage a Pandemic for a Worldwide Police State, or How to Fake a Pandemic for a Worldwide Police State, because that's what I think it is. I think this is all about ushering in a police state, mandatory vaccinations. Also looking at the ID 2020, they want to bring in digital IDs with vaccinations as well, to help the poor people and to help underprivileged people, because they say identification and having control of your identity is a universal human right. Well, yeah, it is. Not giving government control of your identity, so not putting in an identity chip. Government's the last people you want to have any control of your identity. You need to keep everything you can from these people. So, I think all of this has been very, very pre-planned, and I think it's a huge scam. I think they're selling it to the people. I don't think there is any real coronavirus to worry about at all. I mean, 3,000 people dead, and we don't even know if that's what's killing them. And so, there's been a few cases of people dying of coronavirus in America now. They don't tell you that they were old people in an old folks' home that were probably on the way out anyway, and you don't actually know what killed them. So, anybody who displays any symptoms of the cold at all, they can just say is coronavirus. And how can they say, well, we're going to detain suspected coronavirus cases when they say you can have it for 2 weeks and display no symptoms? So how are they doing any tests, and how are they testing? How are you testing positive for coronavirus if you can have it and display no symptoms? It doesn't make sense. They can basically say anybody that they don't like, your temperature's 1 degree high, you coughed, he coughed, he's got a runny nose, symptoms of coronavirus, he tested positive, take him away for quarantine for 2 weeks. They can just disappear people with this coronavirus, put everybody in paranoia, bring in forced mandatory vaccinations to protect you. It's a huge scam, I think, brother.
So you think that the coronavirus was orchestrated or conjured up or created in a lab? Or did it originate from bats and snakes and whatever they eat in China, as they talked about?
I think it was very likely created in a lab, but I think it's race specific, and I don't really think it's coronavirus. I think there's very likely some pathogen that was released in Wuhan, but you don't know, because 5G was tested in Wuhan at the same time. Perhaps the whole biolab pathogen thing is a red herring, because there'll always be an insider that will tell you that, oh, it's a bioweapon. We don't know. We can't prove it. I don't think there is any coronavirus. I think it's just symptoms of the common cold. I mean, coronavirus is a very common thing. It's a common flu virus. So,
and you say that this can be tricked by the frequencies coming from 5G.
Well, the 5G, it's an interesting thing. There's I think he's German or Dutch, a doctor as well, who's figured out that the aluminium in the spraying, the glyphosate in the food, and the 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth from the Wi-Fi actually opens up our blood-brain barrier and allows toxins into our brain. If you look at 5G, 5G covers from 2.4 gigahertz to way up, and it covers the 60 gigahertz bandwidth is in there. When you look at a chart and you look at oxygen and you apply frequencies to oxygen, when you apply 60 gigahertz to oxygen, there's a spike in the oxygen molecule, and it excites the electrons that bond the oxygen molecule together and causes the electrons to spin in reverse. And when this happens, your hemoglobin will not uptake the oxygen into your bloodstream, so you'll suffer respiratory problems. Now, if they can use 5G, which is a target millimeter wave, and they can target you specifically because they've got your DNA, they've got whatever, your biometric resonance, their frequency, whatever, just you, because they can target you with the wave, not the general air, and remove and excite all the oxygen in the air. They could do that if they wanted, I suppose, but it's a targeted beam, so they can target individuals and they can excite the oxygen within your body. You see what I'm saying? That's how they can do it. The people say, why would the elite do this when they're going to be subject to it as well? Well, it's targeted. So they won't necessarily be subject to it, but they can target individuals.
But don't you think they would have to use a lot of resources that perhaps they don't have if they would go after specific individuals?
Well, 5G, that's all you need is 5G. If you've got everybody, they had random vaccinations, they had mandatory vaccinations in China, lots of mandatory vaccinations last year, one in June, one in December, right before this outbreak broke out. If you were putting DNA samples, or if you were putting agents in, if you just put all your vaccines out there, perhaps maybe you put out 1 million vaccines, maybe 500,000 of them had a random isotope in there or something in there. Just a random targeting agent, a tracking agent, whatever, and so that you just got random people. Suddenly, when you switch on your 5G, they all get targeted. I mean, there's ways they can do this. There's ways they can do it. I'm not saying that's what happened, but there's all sorts of ways they can do it. The fact that 5G was switched on in Wuhan, and they gave everybody mandatory vaccinations before this, and Wuhan is also the place where you had the most protests against the Chinese government. And you had a lot of dissidents in Wuhan. You had all these people being rounded up. I would suspect these were all dissidents who were rounded up, most of the people who've disappeared in China. Be a great cover for them to do it. Say it's a virus, run around spraying a few places, get the army in there, put them in civilian suits, get them to just spray and do what they're told and set up this whole thing, create a few videos of it, arrest all the dissidents, and then tell the world it's coronavirus. And coronavirus, like I said, it's a common thing. Where they've locked down northern Italy as well is where they've switched on 5G in northern Italy. You've got cases in there as well, and then you've got cases in Iran and stuff as well. But maybe there is some pathogen, maybe there isn't. I mean, it's difficult to know, and a lot of what I've offered you is highly speculative. I'm not saying it's true, but when I look at all the pieces, I mean, nothing that what they're telling us makes sense. And I have no doubt that the government will use this as an opportunity as much as they can. And the fact that the figures are now declining in China, according to official numbers, according to all sources, anybody you can hear coming out of China, the numbers are declining, and the Western governments are ramping it up more and more and more and predicting all of these travel restrictions. And the World Bank is saying it's going to do terrible things to the economy, and fear of global trade. I was saying a week ago that they're saying coronavirus will last for 9 days on objects, and so they're going to use it to try to promote a cashless society. There was a report that came out today that that's what they're saying now in England, that the World Health Organization is warning that banknotes could be, spreading the virus, so you shouldn't be using cash money, so you can see where they're taking it, brother. This is so orchestrated. And it's the perfect storm to do it. They can cover all their mismanagement, all their deliberate mismanagement with this, and they can segregate people. They can get people too scared to talk to each other or gather with each other or go to meetings or football games or concerts or anything. So, and it's happening all around the world at the same time.
So you mentioned and spoke about mandatory vaccinations and vaccines in general. So how could Bill Gates possibly be involved? He's been promoting vaccines for many, many years. And in a report, I believe it was the United States Patent Application publication, something they refer to as Event 201, taking place in New York City on October 18, 2019, a high-level pandemic simulation exercise of the coronavirus, which took place 6 weeks or more before the actual virus and illness began in Wuhan, China. This was hosted by the Johns Hopkins Center and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So how could they possibly have known or in fact be involved? Is this orchestrated and implemented, put out there on purpose? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Bill Gates is always involved. If you look at you'll find that the Perpetrator Institute actually owns that patent for the coronavirus. But then people say, "Oh, well, is it the right coronavirus?" Because there's all sorts of different COVID viruses. I mean, COVID-19, the CO is Corona V for virus. ID is the ID of the virus, the identified in 2019. That's why it's called COVID-19. You find there's like COVID-15, there's COVID other numbers as well. But yeah, the Perpetrator Institute. I actually put a report on my channel the other day. This goes way back to Dr. Livingstone. Dr. Livingstone, I presume, when they went into Africa, they were actually going in there collecting all these poisons and all the cures for the poisons so that they could come back and create the pharmaceutical industry. Put all these poisons out into society so all these diseases would manifest and then come out with their vaccinations, which were all the cures that they got from the jungle. It's a classic. They've been running this whole scam for a long time. So, yeah, when you see Bill and Melinda Gates involved, it's a staged thing. I mean, yeah, and they ran that simulation just 6 weeks before this happened to see how the numbers would work. And now they're running it, but they don't even need it. They don't even need a pandemic. They don't even need the virus. They can just say this is what's happening. They can just tell you. They can put out there tomorrow, oh, we've had 50,000 people die in Iceland from the virus. You ever been to Iceland? You know anybody in Iceland? How are you going to know whether 50,000 people died in Iceland or not? They won't release the report in Iceland, so they won't even get the news. And if they do, and they try to tell us, well, they'll just tell us it's disinformation and conspiracy theorists, and you'll have the government there go along with it as well, so you would never know.
So it's also used for a kind of collective mind control through the media. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. They can create any story that they want, and people will just buy into it. Like I said to someone the other day, they said, I was looking at the Worldometer and it said that 2,773 people or something had been killed of coronavirus. 76,000 had died of the seasonal flu this year. And I said to someone, do you know anybody who's ever died from the flu? Do you know anybody who knows anybody who's ever died from the flu? 76,000 people have died from the flu this year. It's only February. How have 76,000 people died? We just get the figure and we go, oh, gee, better go get a flu shot.
Quite a lot of people, huh?
Really? That many people died from the flu?
It's a large number.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But I have never met anybody who died from the flu. I don't know anybody who's ever died from the flu. So I wonder about all these numbers, Lucas. I really do, mate.
But in 1981, the horror and sci-fi writer Dean Koontz published a book named The Eyes of Darkness. And interestingly enough, there are a few pages about a biological weapon, a virus recreated in a lab in Wuhan, of all places, in China, named Wuhan 400.
That sort of stuff is fascinating. You got to wonder whether this is an insider, whether it's their predictive programming, whether they're putting out there just because they need to tell us what they're doing. Another really interesting report I saw was that I put on a report I put recently was Bill Ryan from 2010 when he talked about China catching a cold. I thought that was a very interesting thing to have put out 10 years ago as well, how they were going to use biological agents on China and China was going to catch a cold.
And he published this video in 2010, 10 years ago, where he spoke about this Illuminati insider, who was recorded on tape, and they made a transcription of his talk, what he revealed to them about the future and a virus spreading in China on purpose. So please go on from there.
Yeah, it's quite amazing that he put that out there in 2020, 2010. So when you look at that, and you look at the Wuhan 400 as well. I mean, it's interesting. There's another thing that I saw today as well. The old Japanese anime Akira, I think it was called, predicted that the Japanese Olympics would be the Olympics would be in Japan in 2020, and that they may be cancelled. They were talking about today that they may be cancelling the Olympic Games because of the terrible coronavirus. And that was also in a Japanese anime, which came out, I think, in 1989 or 1990. So there seems to be, whether this has been done before, whether we're just living in some sort of a time loop is another question. Whether that's what all this deja vu is about, and some people actually remember, who knows, or whether they're insiders and whether it's just predictive programming, because they have to tell us why they're doing it, and they have to tell us that they are doing it, and see if we notice,
Well, if time and space doesn't exist, then maybe everything is happening at the same time, or everything has happened, the past and the future is happening at the same time. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It could be, brother. Could be. I mean, all the predictive programming, all the predictions we see in the Simpsons as well. Yeah. Makes you wonder, really makes you wonder.
They also had an episode of The Simpsons where about 20 years ago with President Trump, and everybody was laughing, thinking that that could never happen.
Yeah, yeah. And he did all exactly the same moves. I mean, he must have watched that episode of The Simpsons and done that. I don't know, because he even did the same moves going down the escalator and everything. Someone even holding a sign. It was all exactly the same. It was all set up. Had to be.
But they also talk about that the elite, the 1% that some people call the Illuminati, they have to tell the public, they have to inform everybody about everything, or at least in code, if nothing else, before they do anything.
Well, they certainly seem to, because it certainly happens. I mean, I wonder as well, a lot of it, I think, would be to bring about an air of incredulity to people. Because you can tell people about saying, "I'll say, oh, you just saw that in that movie," So it causes people to not really believe what you're saying. There was a movie that came out last year called In the Shadow of the Moon, where it talked about injecting pigs with a pathogen and how they could remotely trigger this pathogen from a computer anytime in the future as well. Very interesting. Vaccinations are basically giving to these people, and then they could just hit them on a computer button, target that person, and go, okay, termination, and have the person die in the middle of a concert, pianist, whatever. So they put it out there in the movies what they can do. And there is an element, I think, of predictive programming, and an element of telling us what they're doing. But like I said, I think it's also to bring about incredulity in others, so that when we try to tell them, I think we're just a movie buff.
So what are your thoughts on the fast rollout of 5G in general? What are the dangers of electromagnetic radiation and frequencies, and do you think it can be stopped, this rollout of 5G?
It can be, if people are prepared to, admit what's going on here. I mean, there's a battle going on. I mean, this is a prison system, and when you look at coronavirus, I mean, it's all intertwined. It's all part and parcel with the same thing. Like I said, coronavirus can be simulated by 5G, and everywhere we've seen these major outbreaks of coronavirus, we've seen 5G being deployed there. So, that shows what electromagnetic radiation can do. I mean, we're electromagnetic beings, and 5G is just bad stuff. We don't need it. We don't need downloads this fast. It's basically a weapon system. That's its first design capability, is as a weapon system. That's what it's always been used for. Microwave cannons, directed energy weapons that they've used in the military for a long time. The communications aspect of it is secondary to the weapons aspect of it.
Phased arrays.
Yeah, by allowing all of these 5G towers to be put around, we're basically allowing prison fences to be put around the place, and they can create no-go zones. They can target people individually. They could create an area where people can walk through it except you, because you're targeted, and it's sensitive to your DNA code or your bioacoustic resonance, and it won't let you pass. So, it's just a bad thing. And we're going to see lots of sickness from it as well, because of the way, it affects people, just radiation. There's so much radiation from these towers. So yeah, I mean, we can stop it if people are prepared to actually stand up and admit it. But people are too cowed. They don't want to be heard. They're too scared to stick their head up.
But they tell you in the mainstream media that 5G is not a problem and it will not cause harm. At least they suspect it won't. But they, of course, tell you about the coronavirus and they talk about climate change. But there are several researchers who suggest that the coronavirus is not only linked to 5G, but also to climate change, UN agenda, depopulation, new world order plan, ultimately AI, artificial intelligence. Do you think all of this is connected?
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely all connected. And, the people will tell you 5G isn't a problem, but they'll also in the same breath tell you that they haven't done any studies. So, how do they know it's not a problem?
So what are your thoughts on climate change? And I just mentioned UN Agenda 21, the Club of Rome manifesto book that came out years ago. What are your thoughts on what is happening with the climate? Is it a man-made problem, the CO2 scare, or is this also an elitist plan to scare people for impose more control on the entire system?
Yeah, tax the air you breathe. Tax the air you breathe. Like climate's changed. That's why we have weather departments. We have a weather report on the news because climate's change. I think, yeah, man-made climate change is real because they're spraying all this stuff in the skies and doing all this stuff. It's not because of CO2, not because of what they're telling us, but yeah, they're doing it themselves. They're changing the climate themselves by all their geoengineering. Now, global warming, they're worried about global warming. Why are they putting microwave towers everywhere, which generate an enormous amount of heat? Why would you be putting all these microwave towers everywhere and letting off all these bombs and all the stuff you're doing if you're actually genuinely scared of climate change and global warming? Doesn't really make a lot of sense, And they tell us that we can fix it by using, less plastic bags or whatever. I mean, and stop driving our cars. I mean, it's ridiculous what they tell us. They're creating the whole situation themselves, and it is absolutely about control, taxing the air that we breathe, and getting us to believe that we can't do normal human activities. All the wars and depleted uranium and all the stuff they do, and they're actually trying to tell us that we're scared of climate change. I don't think the Earth is actually supposed to be as cool as what it is anyway. I think that that's one thing they're terrified of. I would suggest, I can't prove it, but I would suggest that there are cities beneath the ice in the South Pole in Antarctica, and they are terrified that ice will melt and we will discover what is buried beneath it.
Well, for a long time they talked about global warming, but they don't really say that so much anymore. They just call it climate change. And then a lot of these people, scientists or whoever, are saying that it's now global cooling, that it's also that, or it could be that instead, because they have seen no sign of global warming, although many people still say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it appears that we're heading for a solar minimum, if anything. If you believe any of the data, it looks like we're heading for more of an ice age than any type of heat wave. So that's a question as well. We appear to have these every couple of hundred years. You look back at 1800 and frozen to death and places like that, times like that in history. Look at the mammoths that were found frozen up in Siberia that still had fresh flesh. They were thawing them out and actually eating the meat from these mammoths that were frozen with daisies still in their mouth, like snap frozen. So, there's every possibility of a solar minimum coming as well. I've actually discussed that, and there's a real possibility of it if we're to believe any of the history that we're told. And I certainly question all of it. I question everything these days, brother. All the charts and all the stuff. So much information online, we just take it for granted and take it as a given because we find it online and we find these documents that have been scanned and put up there. But how did it all get there? Who put it there? Where does it all come from? I like to see the originals of all of this sort of stuff. So,
But you're certainly having a very hot summer down under there in Australia. And of course, this year, 2020, we saw all of these horrible bushfires taking place. But please talk about that as well, because you've been very public about this, also talking about directed energy weapons. But please go into this. What happened there in Australia?
well, we had terrible fires here this year, unprecedented in the heat of the fires. But we have had larger fires in the past, and for all the heat wave that we're having down here, we've had far worse heat waves here in the past as well. There was a report I saw in the paper of it's 46.6 degrees in Adelaide, broken all temperature records. That's rubbish. I remember when I was a kid and it was 53 in Adelaide. So, it's we had regularly had days of 120 degrees Fahrenheit in Adelaide when I was a kid. So,
And it usually is very hot in Australia during the summer, right?
it's very hot, and we've had bigger fires than the fires that we had here as well. The problem with these fires is the heat that they were burning at, which is because of the incendiary fuel that's been sprayed in the geoengineering. Because if you look at it, it's barium, strontium, and aluminium are three of the active components in the geoengineering spraying. These are also three active components in sparklers that you use at birthday parties. They're essentially spraying the country with sparkler dust. That's what's in the geoengineering. And you think about it, they've been doing this for like 20 years, and it soaks into all the leaves and everything. It falls down in the mulch, and that builds up on the ground. They didn't allow any burn-offs, and they haven't been clearing out any of the forests. It's really been lax for the last 20 years. Little bits of burns and little bits of cleanup, but not a lot. So you had all of this built up. So you had a huge potential for a massive firestorm, and then all you need is a spark, and it's going to go off. And the country gets so dry, you don't even need directed energy weapons to start a fire here in Australia. You can throw a cigarette butt out a window. We had a guy down in Sydney who had a fire start because a roller door, tin door, fell off the back of a utility truck and hit the road, and it caused a few sparks on the asphalt, which set a grass fire on fire on the side of the road, and they had to actually call the fire brigade to put it out because it got so bad. That's how dry it is here, and that's how easy it is to start a fire here.
So what do you think the truth is about the Australian bushfires? Was it similar to what happened in Northern California a couple of years ago?
To a degree. I mean, I think they definitely used directed energy weapons in Northern California. There's a possibility they used them here as well. But again, you've got to look at things as a standalone thing. They made it so obvious that they used directed energy weapons there. So people started calling it out here straight away. But hang on, I haven't actually seen any evidence of directed energy weapons. I've seen evidence of extremely hot fires, like melted hubcaps and stuff. But this could be from the incendiary spraying. This could be, so you'll say it's directed energy weapons, so you look like a tinfoil hatter. So you've got to think 6 or 7 moves ahead with these guys and be very careful to vet what you're saying and presenting. The fires here, what they did was they've dried up a whole bunch of the river systems. They got cotton farming going on out in the center of the country, which is harvesting the water from 2 river systems just for 1 farm. So it's dried out all the southern end of the country. We've got this drought here, which has completely been done deliberately, which has dried it all out. You've got all this spraying that's been going on. Any type of spark is going to set this off. And then you're going to have everyone going, directed energy weapons and all this sort of stuff because they want to believe it.
Well, in the mainstream media and all over the world, they said it was because of climate change.
Yeah, because of climate change. The climate has been changed here deliberately. You dry up the river systems and you're going to dry the country out. And that's what they've done. The river systems here should be flowing. There's no drought in the Northern Territory in Australia. All the drought is south of the like in the Murray-Darling Basin is where all the drought is. It's all south of the Northern Territory because that's where they've diverted all the water from. So they've created it themselves. It's not climate change at all that created the fires here. It was deliberate mismanagement. You had 20 years of preventing back burning. You've got 20 years of spraying incendiary dust all over the country. You've diverted river systems to dry the southern end of the country out, and then you call it climate change. And when you burn all the places out, you burn out a billion animals they killed. And then they're trying to buy people's land back, saying, you don't want to go back there. It's a fire zone. You need to come into the cities. This is Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. They want to move people out of the country areas and bring them into the smart cities. And this is how they're doing it. And it was so contrived. These fires here were absolutely preventable. Now, there were people there, firefighters and locals, who were complaining that we're not burning off. We're not doing all the things that we need to be doing to manage this country because we know we have major fires come through here. The Aboriginals have known it for 40,000 years. They managed this country and never had anything like this happen.
They actually call it a fire season down there, even on Wikipedia, about Australian bushfires.
Yeah, well, they've just done that in the last couple of years. They don't call it summer anymore. They call it fire season. Why do you think that is? Just put that programming in people's mind, you know? So they expect it. And they were clearing out towns as well. Like the firefighters were coming and saying, look, you shouldn't be clearing out the residents because we can save the town if the residents stay here. But if the residents leave, you know, if the fire's coming, the fire front's coming, we put out this house, we run down the road, but then a little spot fire comes in. You might only take a glass of water to put it out, but if there's no one there to hold that glass of water and throw it on it, then it's going to take off and it's going to burn the house down. You're going to lose the whole village, which is what happened. You had police and people coming around and clearing people out of their homes saying, the fire's coming, and clearing people out of the whole villages and whole communities were cleared out. And of course, they all burnt to the ground because there was nobody there to put out little spot fires. So contrived, brother.
When we use the term they, we of course refer to the 1%, the top elite, also referred to as the Illuminati. Is it really their intention to eliminate the majority of the human population in favor of implementing AI, artificial intelligence, and robots instead? And how do we really know that that is their intention?
Yeah, absolutely. You find a lot of the mines here in Australia, they're eliminating people from the mines. All the trucks are driven by robots now. They're all robot trucks. You know, a lot of mine workers are losing their jobs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, they only need enough people to run the machine. And, you know, whoever they want to harvest for all of their nefarious activities that they get up to, all their pedophile activities and stuff. They don't need all the useless eaters. They don't need us. They only needed us to build the mechanism they wanted to be able to continue strip mining this earth, which is what they appear to be doing.
So please talk about mind control and mind control techniques. Also collective mind control and indoctrination through the mainstream media. We talked about directed energy weapons, frequencies that can be used for mind control. And we also know about government trauma-based Mkultra mind control. But how significant is mind control in the world today, do you think?
What we're seeing with this coronavirus is mind control. What we're seeing with the war on terror is mind control. You know, the whole vaccination industry is mind control. You know, everybody is under mind control. People just don't believe it. They don't believe mind control is real, and yet they sit down and they watch their television every day and they don't realize that they call them programs for a reason. You know, you're being programmed. Everybody is being programmed. It's incredible. You know, the whole education system is mind control. It teaches people what to think, not how to think, you know, and trains people to be good little drones in the big machine and removes them of their identity, removes them of any individuality, and then goes out there and puts them out into the workforce and then tells them what reality is on the TV every day. It's all mind control. Just the fact that people, if they have to get up and go to work and do all this stuff they do every day, is mind control. The whole world is under mind control, and they don't even realize it. Now, we look at Mkultra and stuff, it's just getting mind control within the mind control. You know, getting little sections of the mind control victims and mind controlling them a little bit further to turn them into whatever tool you need for whatever agenda you want to push. Like we see with all these mass shootings and stuff. You know, these are all. I'm convinced these are mostly 90%, 99%. These people are victims. They're hit with something. You know, when I see what happened when they flipped me, you know, with that light, what they did to me, what they could do to someone, and I'm aware of all this stuff, what they could do to someone from a broken home who's had maybe he's been on a few drugs his life or whatever, you know, got a chip on his shoulder, he doesn't really know what's going on, he doesn't have a big education, whatever. How easy would it be to flip someone's personality like that and then keep hitting them every night until they just snap and go and do something?
You would think it would be more difficult to do that to somebody like you because you're so aware of it and you've talked about it for such a long time.
Well, that's why, you know, I think I was able to recover so quickly. But that's something that I've said to people as well. I mean, the fact that they could do that to me, and I'm aware of it, and yet when it was happening, I couldn't see it. I didn't have the I don't know. I wasn't in my mode enough. I failed the test. I wasn't able to step back and just say, hey, wait a minute, Max, what are you doing? You know, I wasn't able to think that way. And knowing they can do that to me when I'm aware of this, it makes me see how easy they could do that to somebody else who isn't aware of this at all. And they would, and even, you know, a lot of people would think they'd had an epiphany. They would think that, oh my God, I am the chosen one. They would literally think that, and I can completely understand why they would think it. So I look at how these mass shootings and things happen, and some of the reports you get from these people saying, oh, it was electromagnetic frequencies, I'm hearing voices, I can completely understand how they can do that to people. And all you got to do is look into the DARPA patents and look into Mkultra patents and some of the stuff that they've got, some of the stuff they openly talk about. That's the stuff they openly talk about. What's the stuff they don't talk about?
So do you think that directed energy weapons, and HARP technology is the same thing? Or are they linked? How does it work?
Well, yeah, I mean, HARP, I would suggest, is more for controlling the ionosphere, but there's HARP stations all over the Earth. So whether that's to do with what happened to me, whether these are relay stations, I mean, I don't know. I don't have enough information on that. But HARP is definitely used to manipulate the ionosphere and definitely used to help steer weather systems, I would say. But yeah, I don't have a lot of information on HARP to really be able to give you too much of a comprehensive answer on.
So HARP is not the same as directed energy weapons, you think, or is it part of the same?
Well, it's the same technology. Whether they can actually use HARP to direct to, I mean, who knows what was done to me could have been done through a HARP station. I don't know. I don't have enough information on it, but it is definitely the same technology. From what I understand, HARP is mainly used to direct stuff into the ionosphere, but I've also heard reports that they could actually use it to target and hit direct earthquakes in certain places as well. So whether this is done in a combination with satellites or whether it's done from whoever, ground-based stations, I don't know. Whether they're able to relay to other stations, I don't know. I haven't really done enough research into it, but it's definitely the same type of technology.
So what about CERN in Switzerland? The underground base there, the laboratory. What do you think is actually taking place? There's been a lot of speculation on what is actually going on underneath Switzerland there at CERN. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's another thing I could only really speculate on. Like, you know, I would suggest it's some sort of a quantum opening, you know. So, I mean, they're definitely into quantum computing, possibly even an attempt at a portal, opening a doorway between realms, dimensions, parallel universes. You know, who knows what they're into, man. They're into some really weird stuff. I mean, what they're doing in CERN could even be coupled with HARP. Maybe they're trying to find a way to bust out of this realm. Maybe this is an enclosed system, like we were saying before, some sort of a trap, some sort of a soul trap. You know, I even speculated this is a place designed to trap evil. You know, whether there was a realm that was created, which is an enclosed system, it's impossible to get out of, and certain consciousnesses decided or volunteered to come here to shine their light as bright as they can, because when you shine your light, it attracts evil like moths to a flame, and which is why the place just continually gets more and more evil. The brighter we shine our light, and the more evil it gets, the more we're compelled to shine, because it's designed to trap all the evil in here. And once all the evil's in here, you can't leave. You know, perhaps that's what that is. Perhaps that's this evil being aware of that. The archons, the archontic force, whatever you want to call it, perhaps they're aware that they're trapped here and they're trying like all crazy to get out. And they know that time is running out, and soon the light, the consciousness that came here to trap them will ascend or whatever. And this is where the rapture comes from. Or I mean, you can tie in all the mythologies and all of these concepts into the one thing and find possible elements of truth for the whole thing. But it's just another scenario. It's something that came to me in a meditation once, that possibly this was a trap, but not for our souls, but for evil itself.
Then why are we all here if it's a trap for evil? And if you put light into the darkness, darkness can't survive, can it?
But also, if it's conscious darkness, if it's something like the archons, like I said, light will attract that, like moths to a flame. So if there were people like you or I who decided to come here to shine that light, then, if we can keep our vibration high enough by having no stake in the outcome, being no fear of any of this, then when it does come time for death, which is the only part of your life which is inevitable, I mean, that's the only way out of here is through that. That's the way. That's the doorway. If your light is shining bright enough and your vibration shining bright enough at that time when you make that transition, you'll probably just leave. You won't come back here. But if they manage to put you in fear of death and put you in that fear and you die terrified, you'll probably come straight back here, and that's how they get you.
So the most important thing is not to succumb to fear or fall into the fear trap.
Absolutely. This is a spiritual test more than anything, brother. And this is a spiritual battle more than anything. That's something that I've stressed since day one. That's why I continue to do what I do with no stake in the outcome. I have no stake in the outcome of this experience. So, with that attitude, it's like I was saying, you got to be able to walk the path of the warrior. You've got to be able to face infinity without flinching. Face the ability to face with serenity odds that are not expected in your calculations. No stake in the outcome. You came here to die. That's a given. So don't back down to the fear. Don't live your life in terror and crawling around thinking that you've got to do what you're told. No, it's not about that. It's about overcoming all of that. If you do that and you comply with that, then you're creating that.
That's why people should stop fighting, right? All of this infighting, also within the truth movement.
Well, a lot of that is fear. There's fear of people thinking outside the box. You're challenging my belief system. I don't want to think the way you think. You're making me think about what I'm saying. You find most people who really attack, I mean, I'll defend myself, but most people who really attack and really get angry about it and really go over the top is because their faith in their beliefs is resting on a very, very frail foundation. And when you suggest something that makes them think a little bit, they attack you for it. This is why religious fanatics have got to talk about their religion 24 hours a day. Why flat earthers have got to talk about it 24 hours a day, because their conviction is very frail. So they've got to keep reassuring themselves by talking about it all the time and attacking anyone who questions them, because their faith rests on a foundation that is paper thin.
So we talked about flat earthers and flat earth versus round earth, the globe as we know it. And we talked about the infighting and people battling against each other within the truth and conspiracy research movement, which is of course not helping things very much. But there are other extremely controversial topics which also seems to be dividing people within this movement, such as veganism versus meat eating for the best possible health and diet, and feminism, transgenders, and numerous sexual identities versus equality, Christianity and other religions versus the New Age movement, vaccines and vaccinations versus natural herbal medicine, cannabis oil and chlorine dioxide, referred to as MMS, for better health. Please, let's get into some of these topics and discuss that as well, which may be eye-opening to some people and a bit controversial.
Look, I eat meat. I don't have a problem with eating meat as long as it's, respectfully done. Eat what you want to eat. I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I don't agree with factory farming at all, but a lot of vegans are very militant about it. A lot of them, I don't know, they don't seem to love animals as much as they seem to hate humans, and I find that really strange. A lot of them would happily murder a human to save an animal, which I find kind of bizarre.
Are you referencing something like Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah, some of these people are incredibly militant. They're militant vegans. I find it kind of counterproductive. And there's places like in Mongolia, like they can't eat meat. They can't eat vegetables. There are no vegetables in Mongolia. So, people like the Inuits, where they can't eat vegetables. They live in ice plains. So, and they don't have any diseases. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I think people should eat what they want to eat and let people enjoy their meals.
And of course, everybody would want the best possible treatment and the best life for the animals, even if you eat meat still.
Absolutely. I mean, I know butchers who love their animals, and they're very humane, and so, it's all to do with people's priorities. And yeah, I don't know. A lot of vegans that I know as well are very, very skinny, very lightweight. I don't know. I wonder about it. I really wonder about it. And it's a new thing. There's never been a race of vegans. We need to see how they look after 3 generations to know whether it's actually going to be a healthy diet, because there's no way of actually knowing at the moment.
Absolutely. And then people talk a lot about equality, which of course I would expect is something that everyone in the world is interested in at least ordinary people. But we also see a lot of feminism again, since I think the first time we really heard a lot about feminism was, of course, in the 60s and the revolution back then, because things were not equal. But it seems to be a new popularity again with feminism, and also the transgender movement, and many, I think several hundreds of different sexual identities. What are your thoughts on that? And we're not talking about people who choose what they want to be.
Well, there's no need for any of us. Just be nice to people. It doesn't cost anything to be nice to people. So I think a lot of it is designed to keep us more divided and create these issues, make mountains out of molehills and stuff. As far as transgenderism goes and all of these different pronouns and stuff, this is called stupidity. There is only 2 genders, and transgender is a nonsensical term because it's impossible for someone to transition to the other gender. You can have all sorts of cosmetic surgery, and you can have all sorts of stuff done to make yourself look like the other gender, but you will never, ever, ever, ever be the other gender unless you replace your entire chromosome and endocrine system, and basically replace your entire body and your muscular system and your skeletal system.
So what about those people who are born into a male or female body, and they feel that their soul being or spirit or whatever is the opposite gender, without being operated and having their gender changed?
This is called dysphoria. It's called dysphoria.
And how would you explain that? Is that a soul which is has another identity, born into a body that they don't feel comfortable in?
Could be, could be. But it could be. I don't know. I don't feel that way, but it could be. But the thing is, it's impossible to transition to another gender. This is what I'm trying to say. Transgender it's a nonsensical term. It's impossible to transition into another gender. You could have someone who and I don't care how many people get offended by saying that, because a female will never be a male and a male will never be a female. You can do whatever you want to look that way, but you will never be that way.
But what if they feel that way?
I don't have a problem with gay people, but it's got to the point where all these different pronouns and all this different stuff. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, get over yourselves. Find something real to be offended about, for God's sake. The government's trying to kill you. They're destroying the world. All this stuff they're doing, and you're seriously worried about someone calling you from a pronoun because it offends you. I mean, honestly, it's like I said, it's called stupidity, brother.
But at the moment, we also see a lot of feminism, which we talked about, and a lot of women are getting very offended by things that men are saying or doing.
They always have, and men have always got offended by stuff women have done as well. I mean, feminism is a form of mental illness. It's a form of female chauvinism. You know, it's the belief that the way to combat a male chauvinist is to become a female chauvinist, and it makes no sense. I think men and women should be supportive and loving of each other, and I think there is no room for isms in a sane society.
And sexual identity should be a matter of choice as long as you're not hurting somebody. We're not talking about, of course, somebody who cannot choose, such as children, all of these horrific things that we are hearing about. Also, what the elite supposedly are doing through satanic ritual sacrifices and all of that. Why do you think they're doing that?
Trauma-based mind control, harvesting adrenochrome, and just they like the fear. They just like doing that sort of stuff. You know, evil people do evil things, you know. And yeah, people should be whatever sexual preference they want to be and just stop harassing other people about it. It's all good, you know. But I think, you know, adrenochrome, child harvesting, cannibalism, I mean, they're into some pretty dark stuff, these parasites that are running the world. You know, pretty well everything you can think of, they're into. So, you know, they do what they do because that's what they do.
Is that part of, energy manipulation, a control of energy? And dark energy is like a bypass?
Yeah, I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think a lot of the wars and the rituals that we see, this blood harvesting, this blood rituals, I think it's all to do with this archontic force, you know. But yeah, to me, like I look at it as like a form of bliss that it's like the bliss we have, only it's the dark side, you know. And they just that total control they can have from doing whatever it is that they're doing to someone else, having that control over another life and having, you know, connection to that energy and that soul, what they can do. You know, I've heard reports of, you know, when you traumatize someone, like have you ever had a car accident or anything, like a really traumatic experience in your life when your soul jumped out of your body and you were able to watch it? Have you ever had that happen to you? Like I had a car accident once where I was literally, for a split second, I felt like I was outside of myself watching myself have the car accident.
So your soul left the body, like almost like a near-death experience for a second.
Just for a split second, and then I'm back in there and I'm in the accident. But it's like your soul jumps out when you're about to go through some severe trauma. It puts itself in a safe place where it's able to observe. And I've heard that's what they do. I can't identify it or confirm it, but I've heard that's what they tend to do is they'll traumatize a child to the point that its soul leaves its body, and then they can harvest that energy from the soul somehow. And the trick is to get it so it's literally hovering outside, not just out there for a split second, but just hovering outside. So I think that's a lot of why they terrified the children to the point that they do.
Psychopaths, human beings with no empathy.
Well, you know, I think they're definitely psychopath human beings, but like I said, there could be certain people that have an external driver sort of thing, you know, whether it's an archontic force or you could call it a demon or whatever, or whether there are certain individuals which don't even have a soul and they're not even human at all. They simply look like us, but they're being driven by something else, possibly. I don't know. You know, I mean, like I said, some of the activities that you see from these people, they don't resemble anything that a human could actually do. You know, even a psychopath. I mean, I guess it's hard to you know, think like a psychopath is the problem that you have if you're not one. You know, I've tried to think that way. I've tried to really look at it as a form of bliss and really gone into myself to try to imagine what it would be like to try to get a handle on why they think this way and how they could do what they do.
But they don't feel love either, do they?
Well, it depends on what you call love, isn't it? I mean, love is what is love? Is love this warm fuzzy thing we think it is?
Well, we're not talking about sexuality because they certainly use that.
Well, when I look at love, I see as love being the opposite spectrum of the vibrational energy of fear. So to me, love is simply not fear. So could a psychopath feel love? Quite possibly. Would it be the type of love that we consider to be love? No, probably not. But what is love?
But love could be for your family, for your children, for your parents, people around you, nature, flowers, life, good things in life.
Appreciation, compassion, empathy. Is that love, or is love simply not fear? Have we been taught, so we associate this warm, fuzzy stuff to it. So even like, fighting someone, if I had to fight someone who was attacking my family, would I be doing it out of fear for my family, or would I be doing it out of love for my family? Would I be attacking them or repelling them out of hate for them or out of love for my family? You see what I mean?
Or both.
Well, it's that slightly different. Well, yeah, or both. But why would I be doing it out of fear? Wouldn't it be more powerful to be doing it out of love? Not fear for my family, but out of love for my family, and a need to do what needs to be done, out of the necessity of doing that, out of love for my family, not out of fear what would happen to them. What was going to happen to them would be inevitable if I didn't love them enough to stand up for it. So it's a subtle shift in your perspective, in your mindset, only very, very ever so subtle, but it steps you into a far more powerful place. You know what I'm saying? If you can do that and not think of it out of fear, but out of love, and not out of hate for the perpetrator, but out of love for your family, I'd only repel the perpetrator to the point that he stopped attacking. If he kept attacking, then I'd have to keep repelling him. If it got to the point that I had to kill him, that'd be a terrible thing, but I would do it if it needed to be done, but not out of hate to him. I would do it out of love for my family and out of the necessity that this needed to be done, So it's a subtle shift, but I think it's a very, very empowering shift. So to me, that's my definition of love anyway.
So what are your thoughts on religions? And there are so many, even just within Christianity, there are a couple of hundreds of different ways to interpret and practice Christianity, and Islam, and Hindus, Jews, and Buddhists. And then we, of course, have the New Age movement as well. And then what is true spirituality? What are your thoughts on all of these different interpretations?
I don't do religion at all. I can appreciate a lot of people do. I have a great relationship with God, the creator, the source, whatever it is. And I don't feel like I need religion to get in the way. Religion is someone else's interpretation of how I should feel about what I perceive my creator to be. And I have a great relationship going on already. I don't need anyone else's interpretation to get in the way. And that's the way I perceive it. When people allow their belief of what's written in some particular book to interfere with their relationship between other people, I find that to be problematic. And I'm comfortable for people to believe whatever it is they want to believe, but just please let's get along. Like I said, I think all religions have a seed of supremacy at their root core. No matter how tolerant they claim to be, they always claim that this one is the one. So to me, that itself creates a seed of division and supremacy, whereby religions are designed by their very nature to never get along. And I would even suggest that all of the religions are all, in fact, chapters of the same book, and people should interpret them that way and learn to get along.
So how can we know who is telling the truth and who is not telling the truth? Each individual guest, an author, lecturer, conspiracy truth researcher on shows like these, they all claim to have the truth. And when asked about other people's research, they say, no, that is not the truth, but that they have the truth. So what are we supposed to believe? What can we believe? How do we find the truth? In other words, what is the truth?
Well, the truth, I've realized that, and people don't like me saying this, that the truth is reasonably subjective depending on what people want to believe, because most people believe they have the truth. And the truth is that no one really knows what the truth is, but not too many people are prepared to admit that. I'm a seeker of truth, but even even saying that, and more than being a seeker of truth, I'm a seeker of the freedom needed to find out what the truth is. Because once we establish freedom, I believe the truth will become self-evident. But we don't have the freedom to know what the truth is. I even think the term the truth movement is a loaded term, because no one knows what the truth movement, no one knows what the truth is. The truth movement is a whole bunch of people arguing over their belief systems. That's not the truth. The truth is that no one knows what the truth is. That's the truth. People can't even figure out what this realm is. You've got people arguing whether it's globe or flat or holographic or all the stuff we talked about before. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. I don't have a truth. The only truth I know is this, and I'm actually still figuring this out. I'm still figuring this out anyway. So, that's the only truth you'll ever know is yourself. And until people are prepared to admit that, we're never going to get anywhere in this. This should be a freedom movement, not a truth movement. Because, the truth is we've been lied to. That's the only truth we really know. Anybody who says they have the truth, I would suggest they've really got a lot of searching to do. It's like, I think it was Voltaire or someone said that or Plato said, or Socrates said, a wise man or true wisdom is knowing how little you actually know. And that's the truth, brother. So, yeah, I don't even think that should be what this movement is called.
And each individual listener and viewer should actually search for the truth inside of themselves and inside their hearts, right?
Yeah, the truth is in your heart. That's the truth. I mean, what resonates with you, what feels, I don't claim to have the truth. I make it very clear to people that what I'm offering you is my perspective. I don't know. I can give you the best of what I've got. I think a lot of it makes a lot of sense, and I can see a better way. I don't think we should be doing things this way. I can see a better way, which is why I do what I do. I just kind of point out the obvious to people that the world's run by criminals. I know that's the truth. Exhibit A, the earth. Have a look at the place. It's pretty messed up. And that happens for a reason. So that's about the only truth I can give you. Like I said, I don't claim to have the truth. I'm no guru. I'm no one you should be following. I'm just a guy in a shed offering an opinion that I think may hopefully help people discover the truth of their own life and discover what their own path is, because this has all been just a journey for me. Even if people have gone back that have been fans of the show and have listened to me for 10 years or 11 years, as long as I've been on air, they would have seen the progression of the learning curves that I've gone on, trying to discover what the truth is, and the truth is that we don't know. That's the only truth that I know.
So how do you see the world in the future after 2030? Do we end up living in a kind of Hunger Games society, or will the human mind collectively be taken over or overridden by AI, artificial intelligence? Or will AI and the whole computer game reality eventually be stopped and wiped out? What are your thoughts on that?
There's always hope, but we're definitely heading into a Hunger Games type future where we won't even have the means to sustain ourselves, or get any food or anything if we don't pay attention. But it's going to depend on us. I mean, it's going to depend on which way we go. Hopefully things are getting too much in people's face now with this whole coronavirus scary thing they're trying to do. Hopefully enough people will see it and they'll stand up and stop complying with wrong behavior, and we'll turn the world in a different direction. I mean, we could change the world in a day. We really could. I've said that so many times. We could change the world in a day. We could simply shut this system down and go back to being human again. It wouldn't be that hard to do, but you've got to get enough people motivated to do it. So, the future, we're walking on a knife edge at the moment, brother, and it's going to be determined by the next couple of years. The next 2 or 3 years, I think, are going to decide everything. This is a very, very important year this year. God, we've seen so much unfold, and we're only into the 3rd month of the year. It's incredible. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a very, very determining point. I do have hope. I mean, I can't lose faith in this species. If I did, I couldn't keep going. I think that it's always darkest before the dawn, and we will hopefully stand up to this. And I mean, no stake on the outcome anyway. So, if we don't, we don't. If the experiment fails, then it fails. But if we do end up getting led into that Hunger Games AI type controlled reality, I don't think it will last very long. I don't think the species will last very long in that type of reality. I think we will soon deplete all the resources on this earth, and we can have all the AI we want. We can enjoy trying to eat it. It won't get us very far. So hopefully we won't go that far, but it's, the future's being determined now, man. And I think it's the next 12 months are going to be crucial. I really do. We're on a knife edge right now.
So after discussing all of these controversial topics today, what is your most important and inspirational message for people listening to this?
Love each other. Stop the fear. Don't buy into what the government is telling you. Love and support each other, because if we can do that, we can change the world in a day. We don't have to do any of this. All this stuff that we're taught to do and all these standards we're given, they're not ours. Just love each other. It's so simple. The truth, the way out of this mess, it's so simple that people can't see the forest for the trees. I think there's some big action that has to be taken. There isn't. All you've got to do is stop complying with your own slavery. Put down the fear of being you. Put down the fear you have of the people around you, and just learn how to love again.
So if people want to contact you or know much more about your work, read and go in depth on a lot of the topics that we've discussed today and that you've been talking about for so many years, or have you to come to their place for a lecture, how can they contact you?
My website is thecrowhouse.com. You can just go there. You'll find links to all of my stuff on that website. It's all for free. There's nothing for sale on that website. No subscriber section. There's over 1,000 pages on there now. There's so many articles, and it's a portal that will lead you to so many places, while it's still there until they close it down. It's an old HTML website as well, so it may not come up so well on your mobile phone. I don't own a mobile phone. I don't think people should own these things. So I've kind of kept it that way. I've kept it so it displays well on a computer. And thecrowhouse.com, and you can send me a contact through there. Find all my radio archives, all the films, everything I've made. It's all there at thecrowhouse.com. Thanks for having me on, Luke. It's always a pleasure to come and chat to you, brother.
Well, we certainly got to cover and talk about a lot of different and controversial topics on the show today, and it's been really eye-opening and fascinating to do yet another interview with you, Max Igan. Thank you very much for once more appearing on Age of Truth TV.
My pleasure. Talk soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to Max Igan, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. On behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.